Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
And we are on a plane headed back to, no.
We are rounding up terrorists in El Salvador, bringing them back to America. Bring the plane back, Mr. Trump. It's your duty as president.
I completely agree with the argument that the administration had made that the plane was over international waters, and so the judge's order did not stand.
I would go further. I would agree with the argument that the administration is making now through appeal that you have no standing.
Yeah,
you really don't have any standing on this issue because the president has primary authority on conducting foreign policy.
Well, and it's under this particular act that he's trying to remember the name of it. Somebody, this is how ridiculous.
The Foreign Deportation Act.
Yeah, Foreign Deportation Act
of 1798
or something. And it's like, oh, that's so old. Well, guess what? The Constitution.
That's what Tom Holman said.
The Constitution is old. And we still follow that. We're supposed to. Yeah. We still revere the Declaration of Independence. I mean,
the question becomes, why haven't we been following it all along?
Well, and that is a great question. So this is, and you nailed it because
I'm not feeling great. I'm glad I'm nailing something.
You nailed it because what this administration is doing, and keep in mind, you and I have not been huge fans of Trump for the last few years.
We are whatever Trumpers, if anybody asks.
But he is, and his administration is not testing. They are trying to right the ship of where the role of government is.
Absolutely. And the role of the executive.
And the role of the executive in vis-a-vis carrying out, the execution of the laws that Congress passes. And what they're pushing back against is a overactive judiciary, which has literally gotten out of control. When a district judge can claim the authority to tell the president of the United States that he cannot do something under a law, which he clearly can.
Yes.
The language of the statute is clear. He absolutely can do that. The judge has no right to say you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So this will get to the Supreme Court.
Pending, a hearing where I get to review all the evidence.
Yeah, BS. I mean, this will get to the Supreme Court, and here's my prediction. I've been wrong on things, but I'm predicting.
We know how we are on predictions.
That this is either a 6-3 or it's a 9-0.
Yeah, you would hope it's a 9-0
in favor of the executive, because even the liberal judges on the Supreme Court have to understand what it means for the president to be able to follow the written statute.
Yeah.
That Congress passes. If Congress does it, if they don't like it, they can change the law.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of our system. You don't like it, change it.
Yeah. Enact another law to counteract it.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Stephen Miller actually, I thought, had a good point in an interview he was doing the other day, and that is, if we allow this to happen, then what's to say a district judge can't say what generals can be on a battlefield, or what
exactly right,
or the type of tactics or strategies we could even use on a battlefield.
Right.
The president has no authority with this. We're going to stop it right now.
And I guess we should back up just a little bit. And
that's fine.
For some of our listeners or viewers who may not know what we're talking about, there was the administration rounded up some gang members from El Salvador.
Yeah.
And they used this.
No, from Venezuela.
Oh, Venezuela.
The Tren de Aragua. Am I saying
something
that
like
correctly?
a TDA?
And,
yeah.
Some of them.
And put them on a plane to ship them to El Salvador.
El Salvador, we were paying El Salvador $6 million to house the worst of the worst.
These are the worst of the worst. These are the ones that they thought about doing at Guantanamo, right?
Yes. Well, we have to expand Guantanamo. We don't have
room.
We don't have enough room. My understanding is that Hegseth was down there. A bunch of people were down there just recently, and they're going to expand Guantanamo.
Oh, wow.
For that purpose.
Well, so they took these terrible gangbangers who are vicious
here illegally,
put put them on a plane, send them to El Salvador to house them in a correctional facility there. And
dress them up in their pearly whites.
People, some leftists freaked out. I think the ACLU sued to stop it, which was bizarre.
Which is insane.
And the judge, they put them on a plane, and by the time the judge ruled, they were out in international waters. The administration said, judge doesn't have standing when they're in international waters.
Yeah, I mean, we've already processed these
So
guys.
this whole issue will get. Look, folks, there's a lot of things that are going to go to the Supreme Court over the next couple of years.
And to your point, the administration wants this.
Yes, and
they absolutely want this.
They want it because we have had years and years and years of Democrat and Republican presidents being slapped by the judiciary and being like, oh, okay, and not pushing back and appealing some of these things. And now the Trump administration, to their credit, is saying, you know what? We need to have a look at what the judiciary is doing because we think it's going too far. And I totally agree. We have been talking about this for 30 years.
Yeah.
The overreach of the judiciary.
Yeah. Activist judges inserting themselves into the body politic and trying to circumvent our entire system.
I mean, if they want to make laws, go freaking run for Congress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Resign your judgeship and run for Congress if you want to make laws.
To make laws from the bench.
Gee, Merry Christmas.
And when it comes to foreign policy, this is where I think the administration is on firm ground. That is where the president is at the height of his powers in terms of executing foreign policy, being the commander in chief, his ability to negotiate treaties and engage with world leaders and take people who are here illegally and send them on their way, deport them.
Right. So this and what you're going to read in the mainstream press
and the difference is they're not deporting them back to their home country. They're deporting them to penal colony.
Right. We are outsourcing the imprisonment of criminals, and that's fine. We do that all the time. We have private prisons. We've got federal detainees will end up in state prisons sometimes, depending on how they want to do this. The point is that the administration is saying to the judiciary, we're going to have these fights because you've gone too far.
Yeah.
You've gone too far. So that's good. And we should recap from the last episode or an episode a couple times ago. We were just on the verge of whether there was going to be a Schumer shutdown or not. And Schumer blinked. And
Schumer blinked, and his
base is
for
pissed.
The blinking.
They're pissed.
Yeah, Sandy Cortez running for Senate,
and guess who looks the best by a mile? All of a sudden, Vindication City, Miss Kirsten Sinema.
Yeah, I saw some of her tweets about the filibuster.
She was on fire. And for good reason.
She had been pretty quiet since the election for a while, and then all of a sudden she just let it fly.
As I tweeted, and it got a lot of attention.
The pink tutu got going.
I tweeted that she was exactly right, and every single person who is pissed at Schumer was against Sinema. For stopping the filibuster.
Yeah.
It's like, are you freaking? I mean, it's just like the hypocrisy is just unbelievable.
Well, I mean, and it goes back to there are no principles for leftists. It's all about power. It's all about the ends. It's what is the end goal in all this? And the end goal for them is they would be happy with a shutdown just so they can say that they stopped Trump. But Schumer, to his credit, recognize that a shutdown actually plays into Trump's hands.
Right.
And it would do more damage to their cause in the long run if a shutdown happened. And it would do a lot of harm, despite the fact it would do a lot of harm to the country. But Donald Trump has more leeway to identify essential and non-essential personnel and send the non-essential personnel on their way forever.
Yeah. Well, and it really, what Schumer did, whether he expected to or not, was he exposed the hypocrisy of the hard left on this position on the filibuster. I will regardless of, I mean, I believe that I'll do this till the day I die. I will be supportive of the filibuster.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it
and
protects the minority.
yeah, and
You right now,
which
that
is
minority, I mean, and they should want the filibuster more than ever, because if you read the tea leaves, that minority is likely to be shrinking in the next election cycle.
I mean, if they keep it up like this, it absolutely
if
will
they
shrink.
keep leaning into the 20% of the versus the 80%, they're going to find themselves as a minority party for a very long time.
Yeah.
They refuse. They're doubling down on those 20%, 80-20 issues. And that's a detriment to, you're seeing it in the polling, you're seeing it everywhere.
And
it's a detriment to their party.
Interestingly, we
They're
had
not
some
tacting to the middle.
Yeah, we had some questions about where our senators here in Arizona were going to be, and they both voted no. They both voted to shut it down.
Yeah, so that shows you
Mark Kelly
where
and
they
Ruben
are.
Gallego.
Where is Mark Kelly?
Yeah,
does anyone know where he is?
Well,
is he in the state this
week?
week?
I think I think he's in the state this week. I've seen some activity. Going on.
Well, we know that Ruben lives here.
Yes,
we know that for a fact. Mark has a house in Tucson. Not quite sure if he lives there. That's all I'm gonna.
I'll let you Tucsonians fight it out.
Oh, Tucson! What a mess.
Yeah.
Speaking
of the tax.
So Tucson thought in their infinite wisdom to become the highest taxed, municipal authority in the state. They wanted to raise the tax to over 9%.
Oh my gosh.
And to supposedly fix more roads, add more to the police and what have you. And the business community, to their credit, props to the Tucson business community.
They actually opposed it.
In unison. So you have the Tucson Chamber and SALC and all these different disparate groups that can't get their act together, haven't been able to get you got me going, haven't been able to get their act together for the better part of 30 years, got it together, got some money, opposed the tax increase. And what was really interesting is that Doug Martin, who we've had on the show, who runs Good News Broadcasting, well, he used to run Good News Broadcasting, now it's Good News Enterprises, which is a marketing company. He had a really good point that he posted on LinkedIn the other day. He said that the revenge of the city is going to be fast and furious against those who opposed the tax increase.
Really?
Because that's the way, and this is a good segue, that's the way the Grijalva machine works.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. We both have had our encounters with the former congressman from Southern Arizona. Always enjoyed my encounters with El Jefe. Always very prepared for our encounters. However, he, without a doubt, and you got to give credit where credit is due, has built a political machine within Southern Arizona that is anti-growth, anti-police, anti-progress.
Well,
for whatever progressiveness they espouse, they're anti-progress.
I mean, he is one of the OG progressive caucus guys.
Oh yeah. But unfortunately, the problems that are endemic in Southern Arizona, specifically Tucson, have been there since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Bad roads,
and then perpetuated by
bad police protection,
policies.
Bad fire, bad and a horrendous, anti-growth business community.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, what's the biggest difference that you see in Phoenix and Tucson? I'm like, well, there's two things. One, Phoenix takes blight very seriously.
Right.
Like, if there's a blighted building, they want to sell it, they want to get it torn down, they want to get it redeveloped. Things are being redeveloped here all the time. That's a mindset. That's a business mindset, and it's a city mindset. The other thing is the roads here aren't bad.
Yeah.
In Tucson, it's just the opposite. A building will stay blighted for a decade, and nothing will happen. And the roads have been horrendous forever.
Well, I mean, somebody asked me, what's the biggest difference between Phoenix and Tucson? I say sidewalks. Phoenix has sidewalks. Tucson does not have sidewalks. That's
a great point.
And the point of
I remember when we moved there in 1974, that was my mom's biggest gripe. Tucson has no sidewalks.
There's no sidewalks.
There's no sidewalks.
And when you don't have sidewalks, You make it harder for people to get around without a car.
Yeah.
It also, there's no buffer between the road and whatever is next to the road, which actually makes road maintenance harder.
Yes.
Sidewalks actually help road maintenance.
Yes.
So anyway,
But the mentality is we don't want to be like Phoenix. We don't want to be like Phoenix. We don't want to be like Phoenix. We don't want to be like Phoenix.
so move to Phoenix.
But
Like
that's
so that's what happens.
that's the
People move to
mentality.
Phoenix.
And so what happens is it takes over everything. The approach to growth, the approach to business, the approach to just transportation is this mentality. We don't want to be like Phoenix. We're going to be slow growing, slow with everything. But then the things that would make the community more livable, okay, pulling the damn weeds,
Yeah.
Fixing the blight, enforcing the urban blight ordinances that are actually very similar to the communities around
Right.
the Valley of the Sun. If you were just to enforce those, you would make the community more livable.
Yeah.
But they refuse to do that. And so, again, going back to the initial question, kudos to the business community finally getting together, squashing a massive tax increase that would have made Tucson worse.
Right.
And the purposes for that tax increase was to enrich the machine.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with its express
With actually
purpose.
making the city better. So
And that machine was built by Raul Grijalva. And make no mistake.
well, and so he passed away. It was a long battle with cancer. It was a surprise. I didn't expect to hear when I saw that he had passed away. That was a surprise to me.
I knew. Yeah, I had heard that.
You'd heard that it was imminent.
It was soon.
It is very. It's just happened a few days ago. So the speculation of who's going to run in his seat in the special election.
Adrian Fontes, huh?
Maybe. Obviously, his daughter is one
Another
that's talked
machine,
about, and she is saying, "I'm going to deal with the family issues and the funeral," and I totally agree with that. Yeah. The one person who I think in part this has to do with the loss of this tax increase is Regina Romero, the mayor of Tucson.
Regina,
who I believe is a rising star. She would have been a pretty interesting pick to run for that seat, but she's bowed out. She says, "I'm going to stay as mayor of Phoenix or mayor of Tucson." So
yeah, so she was the biggest advocate of that tax increase. Yeah. Her husband is longtime aide to Raul, so she's part of the machine. So it'll be. I don't buy it. I think she jumps in.
You think she is going to jump in?
I maybe not this cycle because it's an off cycle, but I think in the next permutation, I bet she jumps in, depending on who's elected.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Raul's daughter, she's probably there for as long as she wants.
If it's Adelita, then if she jumps in, she wins for sure. I don't think if Adrian Fontes runs against Adelita, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Why would you leave Secretary of State to run for a congressional seat?
That doesn't make any sense because then you're competing machines going up against each other, and it gets ugly.
Yeah.
I do want to say this about Raul. I mean, the machine is real. It's fairly corrupt. That is what it is. But on a personal basis, he had a difficult relationship with my dad when we had the business, and then when Rodney Glassman went to go work for him as his business liaison, we hosted him at Golden Eagle one time, and I gained an actual relationship with Raul over time, and I would go lobby him on beer issues or after we sold the company on veterans issues because I was on the board of Boulder Crest down in Sonoyta, and talking about issues surrounding veterans reform and VA reform and stuff like that. And I have to give props to his staff. Number one, I got to know some of his staff. They were always incredibly professional, totally different than him. He was always professional, but Raul had this. He was a little disheveled, and he was just he presented himself as not the typical Washington.
He wasn't slick.
No,
he was an authentic guy.
Many people on his staff were very good. And I always enjoyed working with them, always enjoyed educating them on these issues. And let me tell you, they had him prepared for every meeting. He knew the issues. Also, I lobbied him for a little bit on death tax reform. He was absolutely 100% for it.
Oh, really?
He was 100% for repeal.
Interesting.
He never walked back on that. In every meeting that I had, he said, "We have businesses and small businesses in Southern Arizona, farmers and ranchers. I don't understand why we tax people to death."
Huh.
And I don't think
Good
he
for
would
him.
admit that in an open session, but in our meetings, he was very much for death tax reform.
Good for
At
him.
least reform in
Yeah.
some sense.
Well, he was.
Maybe not repeal.
I had a few dealings with him, all very pleasant. He was. I mean, he is the perfect relationship. I mean, the perfect example of a relationship with someone that, and this is a great lesson for all of us. We didn't agree on 90-something% of the
No.
issues because he was just a hardcore leftist progressive. But we could be friendly
Yes.
and have conversations and be civil, and I appreciate that. I appreciated that about him. I appreciate that about other leftist progressive friends of mine. And my hope is that while we have these pitched battles, we don't lose sight of the humanity of the people who are on the other side.
Yeah, it's like my dad always said, I've mentioned this on the show, a vote is a vote. You never know where that person's going to fall. All you can do is talk to them, try to approach them in a manner of, with any issue that you're dealing with, approach them in a manner where that something about that issue is going to resonate with them and their priorities. And so whenever I would go see Raul, even when I was with all, the beer people, and we would go for the legislative conference, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, I might be going. Even then I would say, okay, we can't go in and talk to him about all these tax issues. We have to go in and talk to him about like some social justice issues and how it relates to our industry and what we're doing proactively to promote those.
Yeah.
Because then he's going to be more, in tune.
Yeah.
He's going to appreciate that.
Yep.
And try to talk to him about issues that are important to him within the context of our industry.
Yeah.
Not what's important to us.
Yeah.
And those meetings were productive meetings.
I'll bet they were.
Yeah.
So, little shift.
Of course.
As we wrap this up for this Flash episode. I don't even
The Flash episode?
I don't know what we call these.
So the episodes from the non-exposed location.
Yeah. So this last weekend, so it's Tuesday, March 18th, on a couple days ago, on Sunday, Alyssa and I, my wife, participated in our first ever what's called High Rocks race. HYROX.
You've been talking about this.
And
you had to run.
Yes, and I'm not a runner. I've become more of a runner. It is 8 kilometers, and in between, and it's 1 kilometer at a time, and in between each kilometer, it's an exercise that you have to conduct. And we did what's called mixed doubles, a man and a woman. And you can split up the exercises however you both have to run, but you can split up the exercises however you feel like it. And I thought we did pretty well. Our goal was to get it done in 1 hour and 30 minutes. And we finished in 1 hour and 26 minutes and 5 seconds.
That's awesome.
I was really happy. And I was so
awesome.
What made me even more happy was I wasn't dead. I mean, I felt exhilarated coming out of it.
What was the secret? Other than the training, obviously, the preparation is one. But mentally, I would imagine that was a lot of it.
Yeah. The secret was having my wife set an expectation that she knew where I would go. So she guided me right to the sweet spot where I was like expecting to be a little bit more exhausted and burned out. And, she just knew exactly how to train us for this. I was just all props to her. I mean, it was just amazing. So we're hooked. We're going to be doing another one in DC in a couple of weeks. We're going to be doing one in Atlanta in a month. Then we'll probably take a few months off because there just aren't any that are convenient. But
how did the running feel for you?
It actually felt very good. We did a not as hardcore pace.
Kilometers, what, like 0.6?
0.6-ish.
Yeah.
So we were probably averaging just over 6 minutes a kilometer. So not a heavy pace.
No.
but fast enough that I mean, the one thing that was very pleasantly surprising was that between the two of us, we ripped through the exercises really well. We were very effective.
That's good.
I really have to give props to Alyssa. I mean, she crushed the burpee broad jumps and the sandbag lunges. The sandbag lunges were just, oh, I mean, I was dying, and she just carried us.
I
So
guess if you train for it, it's fine. But
yeah, it doesn't matter how many burpees you do. It's just to do it, burpee broad jump in that competition. I mean, it is brutal. At least for me.
that's
So it
burpee
just
barfarama.
yeah, right. So it turned out to be
Of course, I do
fantastic.
Bosu ball push-ups until I throw up. So it's all relative.
So you can check out, my Facebook or Instagram if you want to see some photos or I did a reel with some of the professional
great.
photos they did. But it was a lot of fun, and it just made me realize the importance of self betterment.
Yeah.
I had a serious issue with alcohol for many years. Got sober in August of 2021. Right? I'm coming up on 4 years. But that doesn't hold a candle to
I mean,
where you are.
Yeah, so I was in the alcohol industry for 20 something years. And my days were spent with alcohol. I mean, I would have a beer at lunch, maybe two, have a beer at 5 o'clock, go home, make a cocktail, maybe a couple glasses of wine. I mean, it was a daily thing. And then be going out to different conventions and being a little bit inebriated and all that. And 10 years ago yesterday, I was at the Round Robin Bar in Washington, D.C., buying drinks for Haley Barber and Doris Kearns Goodwin on St. Patrick's Day. And the next morning, I woke up and met up with our good friend John Desser with the idea that I was going to do some big spiritual cleansing. And we drove down to Charlottesville, and we spent about 6 or 7 hours with a group of pastors. And in that 6 or 7 hours, a lot was revealed to me about my past, about my home life growing up, about just we're in this big prayer session and a lot of spiritual stuff's happening. And I really went into it because I had gotten to a point with alcohol that I was not healthy. And I was not necessarily an alcoholic where I needed it every day, but I would definitely, when I would go out, I would think about getting wasted.
Yeah, you went hard.
Yeah. And I was not in a good relationship with alcohol at all. And so my idea was I thought there was a spiritual undertone to that. I wanted to confront it and embrace it. And so the next morning, I woke up on the 19th and I stopped drinking. And I stopped drinking completely for about 3.5 years. And today I can have like half a glass of wine or maybe a little bit of beer, but that's it.
But
And
it doesn't do like what I would do is if I had a sip, if I had a drink, I'd be immediately chasing it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So you've overcome that issue.
Yeah, and I have guardrails around myself too, and so other people would not consider that sober, and I get that. But today is 10 years of, I would call it sobriety.
Yeah,
because I'm not chasing the buzz.
Right.
I'm not chasing the wanting to be inebriated or medicating myself, which is what I was really doing.
Exactly.
Because I was in a really toxic work environment. I can say that honestly now. And that was affecting my home life. And I had to really realize what I needed to put first. And once I decided to put God first and my family second and everything else, it was going to be what it is, including my extended family, which did not go over well, obviously. But I had alcohol on a pedestal too. And I was living the life and playing out the role and drinking martinis and drinking bourbon. And I do not drink hard alcohol at all. And eventually my wife was like, I never felt like you were alcoholic, I felt like you were just abusing. Do you think you could have a glass of wine every once in a while? We just will split a glass or split a beer or whatever. But I always do it with her around,
Yeah.
and I just create some
Right. The
guardrails around
guardrails
me
are, that's the important part.
that are like sacrosanct, and it's been a unique blessing,
Good.
And so a lot of people who struggle with their alcohol for different reasons, it is a spiritual issue, I believe wholeheartedly. That's why AA is structured the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
The 12 steps are, but the number one part of the 12 steps is recognizing that you cannot do it on your own, that
Right.
there's a higher power
Higher
that
power.
you need help from.
Yep.
And I did not go through 12 step. I had this immense cleansing that has been keeping me sober ever since.
Awesome. Well, it's a great reminder the day after St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, what a boring. I ran into guys from Crescent Crown yesterday over at Wally's because I was picking up a sandwich for my son, and they're all getting ready for the day. And
Right.
ran into Bubba Moffett. He's a good friend, and he was a competitor at one time. And I'm like, I don't miss this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we would start on St. Patrick's Day at 6 a.m. at Bob Dobbs in
Yeah.
Tucson. My only guardrail back then was to be back home at 6 p.m. Otherwise,
Completely
it was
wasted.
all day.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Well,
Thankful for this time.
yes.
Thankful for this time as well that
Yeah.
we do get to
Well,
do this.
and especially thankful to our viewers, the listeners. Thank you
Yes.
for putting up with us and making us a success. This has been amazing. Thanks to our sponsor, one of our sponsors, Americans for Prosperity, Arizona. And until next time.
Well, until 2 days from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with you.
All right.
God
Thanks,
bless.
everybody. Take care.